So our topic for today, we are talking about healthful living, and this message is intended for anyone who is aware and who knows that they have been created by God. The reason I say this is because when the evolution of science came in, there was another belief or another theory called the the theory of evolution, where certain people don't believe that we were created, but we know you and I, we know that we have been created by the most loving and caring God. So when God created us, he had an intention for you and I, and that was for a healthful living. He wanted us to live in a healthful, happy life. And despite sin, which came and interrupted the plan, God continued his plan to supply us with resources to keep us healthy and live a healthy and happy life. But before we go further, let me give you this illustration. Like especially in our generation, we have seen so much development, especially in the field of engineering, where people do design certain machines and engines. And when an engineer designs an engine, they provide a suitable fuel. They would do everything. They produce the manual on how the engine will operate. But what's more importantly, they supply the perfect fuel which will help to run that engine. And if you attempt to put a wrong type of oil, the engine will not run smoothly. For those who operate motor vehicles, if your vehicle was designed to be operated by gasoline and you try to put in diesel, trust me, the vehicle is not going to move no matter what you try. And why? Because you put in a wrong type of fuel. So in the similar manner, I'm giving this example to show you that when God designed us, he created us, he also designed a specific type of diet which will help us to live us to our optimal life. And that's why in the book of Genesis, so this is when God had finished creating Adam and Eve. This is why he instructed. He said that, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. So in here, when God created Adam and Eve, because there was no sin, the goal was for them to live forever. And what was going to help them live forever, even though they had not eaten on the tree of life, but the certain diet God provided to them, it was what was going to lead them to live forever, because there was no sin. Their body was never going to age as we do these days. There was no death in that time. But what was going to contribute to this plan was the type of diet God produced to them. He designed for them to eat fruits and grains, and this included nuts and everything. But soon sin came into the world, they sinned, and God did not take this away from them, but instead, because he knew that they were going to start a life of hardship, and their body was going to age and eventually pass away or die, he also introduced bread and vegetable on their diet. On top of the fruits and grains, he also added on bread and vegetable for certain reason which I will mention, because he knew that they are now going to start a life of hardship, and their body will start to lose some of the cells. Some of the cells will start to age. So they won't have any enzymes. So the type of vegetables, it was to be able to recover, to help their body recover daily, because vegetables, they are full of enzyme, they are full of minerals and other things which is there to aid the body from aging. The antioxidant found in those type of diet will help the body to rebuild itself as we live on a daily basis. But again, on the same note, this was to help them. So, and then the bread was added. The bread was also to give him energy and strength. So here, in the book called The Healing Food, The Food That Heals, by Dr. George Pamplona, and this is a very renowned doctor. He used to be a surgeon at Romarinda, where he was working as a surgeon, a doctor who operates. But then later he realized that operating is not curing. Then he went to do the study on plant medicine, or food as a medicine, as a way to do more prevention. And this came to a great results, because the books he has written have been actually preventing people from getting to the operation table. So in the book, he pointed out the value or the importance of God's diet, the type of diet God designed for us. So two things have been mentioned, which we can never find anywhere else. Even though human being is known to eat everything on the face of the earth, but they are, among other diet known to man, the diet provided by God has two ingredients which you cannot find anywhere. The first one is the antioxidant. The antioxidant is what helps the body from aging. So let me explain this further. Every time we interact with anything that's damaging to us, maybe it could be using too much of the cell phone, using your phone too much. The transmitters are going to interact with your neurons, and that's going to damage. That's a free radical. Now the free radicals are getting into your body. We eat chemicals. We breathe chemicals. All that is coming to us, and it's damaging our cells. So the antioxidant, it's what helping our body from not aging. Because oxidating means aging, so antioxidant, it means we are not going to age if we stick on God's diet, because it's full of vitamins and minerals that will help us to keep refreshed every day. Number two, which cannot be found anywhere, it's the phytochemicals. So the phytochemical, it's the plant medicine, or it's a plant medicine, or medicine found in a plant, and because it's in its original form, in its natural form, when consumed in the right amount, it can prevent you from getting sick. Nothing else, no other diet can be able to do that but the one which has been provided by God. But in this book, that means I was reading on page 12 of Food That Heals by Dr. George Pamplona, Roger. On the same page, he wrote the 5 importance of food, or what you can expect from food. So the first thing he pointed out, he said that when we are consuming food, we need to make sure that the food will not do any harm to us and to our body. What kind of harm are they talking about? So harm such as infection, food poisoning, which happens regularly, especially for people consuming food from the animal origin, and other diseases which are associated or which can be linked to food. So when we are consuming food, we need to think of this. And when God was designing the type of diet for you and I, he kept this in mind. That's why the original diet God provided, there has been no case where the food God provided can cause any harm. Number 2, the food must provide us energy. That's why God added bread or carbohydrates to Adam's diet in addition to vegetable. That's found in the book of Genesis chapter 3 verse 18. He said, and you shall eat. So we don't need to read it, but that's what he says in Genesis chapter 3 verse 18. God increased on the diet they have, where he added bread and vegetables. So the bread was for energy. That's why the carbohydrates we get from this diet, it's full of what is called fiber. So fiber, it's what cleans the intestines, both the large and small, so that every time we are going, the digestion works properly, and every time we are going to discharge, all the trash comes out of our body, and that's because of thanks to the fiber found into the carbohydrates we consume. Number 3, the food we consume must be full of nutrients. And we realize that the diet provided by God is full of healthful living because it has both the antioxidant and the phytonutrients and the phytochemicals, which surprise all of this mentioned. Number 4, it says that the food we eat must prevent and also cure of diseases, and the diet given by God, it's able to do that. Number 5, which is the final one, the food in which we consume must also bring us pleasure. And what happens every time you are, like for mango lovers, if it's the mango season and the mangoes are ripe, when we are eating the mango, the natural sugar, the amount of liquid found into that, the water in the mango, it brings joy. And every time we are going through that, we need to thank God for His purposeful living. Now, the message for today is called the healthful living. We know, when we look into the history, I will give you a history of this gentleman. He is known to be Britain's oldest citizen. His name was James Parr. So James Parr, he was known to have lived 150 years. And during this time, he was a simple farmer, and all he ate was a simple diet, simple vegetarian diet made of apples, potatoes, and wheat, the type of wheat called the oats. And this was his staple meal regularly. But if he had lived 150 years, that means he saw 10 of the reigns of different kings of Britain, including Queen Elizabeth I. But then during the time of King Charles I, he invited this old man into his palace so that he can explain what has helped him to live this long. And this, in his old age at 150, he listened and he came to the palace and he explained to the king what has actually kept him to live longer and vigor. So the king was impressed and he requested for him to stay overnight in the palace, and they feed him the rich food of the king. And unfortunately, he did not survive for the night. He passed away because he was not used to the fancy meal of the king. And King Charles, he was actually very sad because he blamed himself for the death, because he fed the poor dad to this gentleman, and he requested for him to be buried into the same place they bury people with the honor and noble. But what that story teaches us is that every time we want to live healthy and longer, the way to go is back to Eden. Because we realize that the diet given by God, it has everything we need to live healthfully. And so let's look with the food. Geographically, when we look at the food and its impact, we know that after the flood, Noah was allowed to eat meat, but we know that's because of sin. When Noah came out of the flood, there was no other living things on the face of the earth other than the animals he had entered in the ark with. But even regardless, despite that, God still selected some of the cleanest animals for him to consume, and he also forbid him from consuming certain type of animals because they are considered to be unclean. What we take from here, it's what happened. We notice that the moment man started consuming meat, he also decreased in living. For instance, Noah lived up to 950 years, almost 1,000. His son Shem, who had come out of the ark, he lived 600 years. So there was a decline of about 300 years in the difference because of this type of diet. And then when we move on 9 generations later to the time of Abraham, he lived 175 years because of that. But one could say that was the time of Abraham. Now let's fast forward to today, I will focus to the tribe in Kenya and Tanzania called the Maasai. These are called to be nomads. These tribe, they are called to be nomads. They look after their cattle and they are very energetic. They are very strong. They do a very intensive exercise, but their diet is considered to be of containing red meat. They eat a lot of meat because they are nomadics. They have animals with them, so it's what they consume. But studies have noticed that even though they live a healthy, their lifestyle is healthy, they are working very hard and very active, but during their time, the life expectancy of every male in this tribe, they live up to 52 years, and the life expectancy of the female, it's up to 45 years. And this is linked to their diet, the type of diet they consume, because it's containing of red meat, and this is causing more of cardiovascular, like heart disease is very common in this tribe every time they do autopsy. But then we look into a place called Romarinda. It's in California. The population is full of Adventists. They are fully vegetarian. They don't eat any animal-related products. And they are the healthiest on this planet, who you will find someone of 100 years still driving a vehicle. And this is linked to their vegetarian lifestyle. When we look into Japan and China, these are the people who consume a lot of soy, rice, and lots of rice and soy. And because of their soy consumption, we know when we look into their population, the rates of cancer, diabetes, and reproduction, it's very low because of the type of diet. So even if we are not going through scriptures, we can see geographically that the food we eat, it definitely impacts on our healthful life. So, but this has to come to the origin of God and his design for you and I. So as we come to a conclusion, I would like to let's point out some of the food in which can be used as a way to treat some of the diseases we have. So I'm going to treat 3 types of illnesses. The first one is cancer, and we need to know that cancer is now a leading cause, and it's a very scary disease to have these days. But through what God has provided, there can be cure. Some of the things we can use to help and when we look at the lemon as is, the lemon has 3 components in it. There is the skin of the lemon, there is the juice of the lemon, and there is also the seeds of the lemon. All those 3 components, they have a purpose in healing and preventing disease. Let's look at the skin of the lemon. The skin has 2 elements in them. The first one is called the rutin, and the second one is called the lycopene. And these are good for fighting any cancer cells which can be in the body. But this is found in the skin. So there will be times when we will prescribe to eat the lemon with its juice, its seeds, and its skin because of this purpose. We need the skin for those 2 components, the rutin and the lycopene. And then when we look at the seeds, they are very good for destroying any parasites. And the parasites, they can enter into our body through different places. That's why we need it. And then the juice of the lemon, it's good for cleansing the blood and detoxifying any chemicals we may have. So that's so in treating cancer and fighting and preventing it, we need the lemon and all those elements in it. We also need the carrot. Carrot it's full of the antioxidants because it has vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin C, and those vitamins are known to be antioxidant, and they are good for fighting any cancer cells. And then number 3, we need wheat germ. So we take the grains of wheat, we germinate it, and we eat it while it's sprouted. So sprouted wheat. So in this one, we need those 3 things. So we need the whole lemon, we need 1 carrot, and we need sprouted wheat, and this can be used for helping to prevent cancer and to kill any cancer cells which may be in our body. Number 2, we also need to look at the urinary infection or sexual infection of any kind, but mostly urinary tract infection or any infection that may be related in that area. It can damage relationship. It's common these days because of the lifestyle we live, certain clothes we wear, especially for female. Whenever we are dressing in tight pants or trousers, it can lead to those related illnesses, which I will not explain into any further, but anyone who has experienced it, they can understand because the damage which it does. Now, to treat it's treatable, yes, using God's creation by taking 3 tablespoons of pumpkin seeds in the morning. So in the morning, take 3 spoons of pumpkin seed for breakfast. Before you even drink water, pumpkin seed. At lunch, you need to eat 2 pieces of carrots. If it's a large carrot, 1 is sufficient, but if it's small, 2 will be good. And then in the evening, have 3 cloves of garlic, and do that for 7 days. Any type of infection you may have, it's going to be taken care of. There are other things you may use, but for sake of time, we want to limit the time we have. Use those 3 ingredients, it will take care of the problem. Number 3, we want to conclude on kidney and any kidney diseases that may be related. Before I do that, I want to give little symptoms of how can you know you have kidney. You are feeling thirsty at night, in the middle of the night, you are feeling the need of drinking water because you are thirsty. And then having memory loss, that means you may be going to pick up something, but then once you arrive, you forget what it is. And in another one which I want to add also, nose bleeding and also sweating, the eyebrows, in the morning you wake up and your eyes are swollen. That's a sign that your kidney, it's under attack. So what can you do? Very simple. Wherever you are, if you can, you need 2 things. You need mango, a very good ripe mango, and sorghum. So you will take sorghum, cook it in the same way you cook rice. You boil water. If you have the sea salt, put in a pinch of sea salt. And if you have olive oil, put in like a drip of olive oil into the boiling water. Then pour in your sorghum. Use the same measurement you use for rice, and then cook the sorghum until it's fully cooked. And when it's fully cooked, prepare the mango, eat the mango first, and then eat as much sorghum as you can have. Do that for 7 days fully. The kidney will be repaired and you will live back to a healthful life. Now, there are so many things we can say in this moment, but we want to conclude from here with this message. When you don't take time to take care of your wellness, you will be forced to make time for the illness. So if you don't take care of your wellness now, later on you will find yourself sick and spending so much resources and energy when you could take care of yourself now. And we know that when our body is ill, we cannot be in a position to praise God. So when God created us, He put us in a natural pharmacy to feed us of any hunger and of any illnesses we may have. What we need is to have faith in Him, believe in Him that He can supply us with what we need, and avoid any false teaching, especially the evolution theories, which denies of a maker, and stick to God and His plan, and He will also fulfill our needs. May that be our prayer in Jesus' name.